Hello, and welcome to this module on Morpheus Library Management. In this module, we'll cover instance types, virtual images, creating custom instance types, other library types, and creating and ordering catalog items. In the first section, we'll describe Morpheus instance types. Viewed at library blueprints, instance types are the most prominent elements of the Morpheus library. By default, Morpheus includes nearly 60 instance types, which are available in a menu and ready to be provisioned into clouds. The default instance types represent a wide array of services including operating systems, databases, and other applications. Based on the specific instance type, they can be deployed as VMs, containers, and bare metal, and at various software versions, literally providing hundreds of deployment options in a new environment. Despite the breadth of available instance types, customers are not limited to these and can easily use their own images to create custom instance types, which can be added to the library. Images can be automatically synced into Morpheus from a connected cloud or uploaded by a user to then be used as an instance type. This is a multi-step process, which we will step through in this module. Here's an example representing an Apache instance type. This can also be found in the Blueprint Development Overview section of the Morpheus docs. The drawing depicts the three levels of an instance type: the instance type itself, the layouts, and the node types. The instance type is what is seen in the Provisioning Wizard menu, or in the instance type list as shown on the previous slide. This includes a name, an icon, a search category to help locate the instance type, and other metadata. As shown at right, it can also contain option types, now known as inputs, which provide a means to gather unique user input at provisioning time. Input examples might include selecting a cost center or specific corporate business entity, and other use cases specific to a customer's needs. The layout level defines the technology or cloud type, software version, and if used, provisioning workflows. As shown here, there are two different layouts for Apache on AWS based on different software versions, and also layouts for Apache on Azure and VMware. Provisioning workflows could also be associated with either of these or additional layouts. At provisioning time, the user selects the desired cloud, and then Morpheus filters the list of layouts to those appropriate to the cloud type. And if multiple layouts exist, the user selects a specific layout. The node type is the bridge between a layout and a virtual image. As you'll see later in this module, Morpheus provides default virtual images encompassing many operating systems, databases, and other software, and additional images can be automatically synced from some attached clouds or even manually uploaded. Node types are also unique to a given technology or cloud type, and in addition to a specific virtual image, may also include Morpheus file and script templates, which are addressed later in this module. Note that once created, a node type can be associated with multiple layouts and in multiple instance types. Note that instance types are not required to have node types associated with them. Two examples of when a node type is not required include when a layout is configured with a Morpheus spec template in order to leverage infrastructure as code to build the VM, or when creating an X as a service instance type, which is a non-VM backed layout leveraging automation to represent and manage anything as an instance. Let's look at that Apache instance type example from the context of an actual Morpheus environment. Here, we're drilled down on the Apache instance type and can see a subset of the over 30 layouts that Morpheus makes available for this instance type. You can see that they span the available cloud technologies as well as operating systems. It's worth noting that there's also a vast list of node types to support these layouts, some of which are used by multiple layouts. We'll show you how to provision Morpheus instances in another module. The purpose here is to reinforce the relationship between instance types and instances. As shown here in the provisioning wizard, note that the first step in provisioning an instance is to select the underlying instance type. This menu will include those default instance types provided by Morpheus, as well as custom instance types that can be created by the customer. The wizard then steps through several more pages where the instance is defined and configured with key settings. Depending on the specific instance type, these will include the group and cloud, the layout, the service plan, network and security settings, automation, etc. It's at the completion of this wizard that Morpheus provisions the instance. Note that access to specific instance types can be managed through visibility settings and user role permissions. In this section, we'll work with virtual images. As already stated, Morpheus provides a vast repo of pre-configured images. Shown here is a subset of Morpheus system images. These can be found at Library, Virtual Images. There are two types of images, system images and user images. System images are the pre-configured images provided by Morpheus, for which there's a rich catalog of hundreds for all supported cloud types. It is these system images that are used by Morpheus's default instance types. User images are cloud synced images for connected clouds or manually uploaded images. Images can be uploaded directly from several cloud types or added by file name. Synced or manually uploaded images must first be configured with metadata and associated with an instance type before they can be provisioned. Morpheus system images have Cloud Init for Linux or Cloud Base Init for Windows enabled by default. Cloud Init is a generic industry tool that manages the initialization of a cloud instance. And in Morpheus, it's also used to install the Morpheus agent on an instance. System images cannot be modified, so they need a way for the user to be defined for authentication in the console. Users can be defined at Administration Settings Provisioning, where there is a Cloud Init Settings section for Linux, and also a Windows Settings section. This is a global setting and will result in all provisioned instances having this user account created. Alternatively, each user's user settings can be configured to create a user account on any instance that that user provisions. If a specific image has a pre-existing user account, then that user account can also be used to authenticate. We recommend using Cloud Init on all user images as it provides the cleanest provisioning method. If Cloud Init is enabled on the image, it will create the user defined at Administration Settings Provisioning, or in the user's user settings, or the user that may be configured for the virtual image. If Cloud Init is not enabled, then existing root level credentials must be defined on the image. To create a user image, go to Library, Virtual Images, Add, and then select the image type. Note that images can be used directly from Amazon and Azure marketplaces, by providing the image ID. Note that Morpheus is only adding metadata such as the location and ID for the marketplace image. They're not being transferred to Morpheus. Most of the other image types can be added by drag and drop or pointing to a URL. In the form, give the virtual image a name, select the operating system, and optionally the minimum memory. With minimum memory configured, Morpheus will only present service plans that meet this minimum at provisioning time. For Azure images, select the region, enter the image, and optionally a SKU and version. AWS is very similar, simply requiring the AMI ID for an integrated cloud. For all images, set the checkboxes as needed. By default, Cloud Init is assumed and enabled. Uncheck it if Cloud Init or Cloud-based Init are not part of the image, and as mentioned previously, provide an existing root-level credential for the image. Install Agent determines whether the Morpheus agent will be automatically installed, which is the default Morpheus behavior. The username and password for an image can be used to create a given user at provisioning time when Cloud Init is enabled. Note that this is not necessary when Cloud Init user data is configured at administration settings provisioning or defined in the user's user settings. For ISO, VMware, and other images, choose to drag and drop or point to a URL to add the image file. In this section, we'll show you how to create custom instance types for provisioning. Instance types and their required objects are created in the Library Blueprints section of the user interface. In creating an instance type, there are a couple of different paths that one could take. One by one, you could click on each of the three object tabs, Instance Types, Layouts, and Node Types. Click Add, and then build out that specific object. Just note that when building a layout, you must specify the instance type, so the instance type would need to be configured beforehand. Additionally, a layout also needs to specify the node type name, so it might make sense to create the node type first, or leverage a pre-existing one, or maybe come back later and modify the layout. While this flow works, it seems a bit disjointed. The approach we'll take is more top-down and straightforward. Create the instance type, click the resulting link to create a layout, and then click its resulting link to create a node type. This is the easiest path to create all three required objects, and it automatically stitches together the necessary pieces. Again, instance types are created at Library, Blueprints, Instance Types, Add. You might consider the instance type as the menu item, as much of what is configured here impacts the instance type's display in the provisioning wizard and elsewhere in the UI. In the dialog or form, provide a required name, a code which can be used for automation, and then fill out other fields as needed. The description, the correct category of service for search purposes, a comma-separated list of labels for organizing, and an icon for the various instance type displays are recommended. There's also a dark mode icon field for those using the Morpheus dark mode theme. Other possible settings include visibility settings, which determine whether the instance type would be available in other tenants if they exist, inputs, which are custom options or fields presented to the user at provisioning time, specific price sets to apply to resulting instances, and advanced settings. See Morpheus docs in the Library Blueprints Instance Type section for more details about all the environment prefix and environment variables, as well as other instance type settings. Once the new instance type has been saved, it'll show up at the top of the instance type list. Click its hyperlink, and in the resulting Layouts display or tab, click Add Layout. As mentioned previously, layouts serve as the connector between instance types and node types, and they can contain multiple node types. For example, an Apache layout may contain a Docker Apache container node type and a Ubuntu VM Apache node type. Layouts are sometimes seen as connectors between instance types and node types. If you recall from an earlier drawing, it sits in the middle level between the instance type and the node type. To configure the layout, first give it a name and version, and modify the display order if desired. Then give it a description and optional labels. The name and version are key elements seen in the provisioning wizard. The technology field determines the cloud type, such as VMware, AWS, Azure, etc. As discussed earlier, minimum memory allows you to configure the layout for a minimum amount of memory. At provisioning time, Morpheus will not display service plans that do not meet the minimum memory configuration. In environments with existing provisioning workflows, which are one piece of the Morpheus automation capability, they can be added to a layout here. Environment variables can also be added to the instance when provisioned, and inputs can also be configured at the layout level. Noting that a given instance type can have multiple layouts, as we covered earlier, there could be different workflows, variables, and inputs configured for each. Finally, in the Nodes field, you could select a pre-existing node type, or if one hasn't been created yet, just click Save Changes, and you can then add a new node type. Note that the Creatable checkbox, shown above the Technology field, determines whether this layout will be selectable at provisioning time. Once the new layout has been saved, you'll see it in the Layouts list. Click its hyperlink, and in the resulting VM types display or tab, click Add. Note that in the UI, node types and VM types are the same. For the node type, configure the name, a short name, and a version. Note that the short name is the same as the code that are found on most other forms in the UI. Given the process we followed for building out the instance type, the technology field is predetermined and cannot be modified. That's because this specific node type is already tied to a layout for which AWS was already selected. Note that many of the remaining fields on the form are the direct result of the chosen technology. If creating a node type on its own, modifying the technology field would change the remaining fields. Environment variables can also be added here. Depending on the chosen technology, there will be some field into which you select the virtual image. Here, I selected a pre-existing Morpheus Apache virtual image, which consists of Apache 2.4 running on CentOS 7.3. Again, there are hundreds of virtual images to choose from, or you could add your own unique virtual image or Azure and AWS Marketplace images to Morpheus and create a node type consisting of that image here. At the bottom half of the node type form, there are additional fields to identify a log folder for Morpheus to be able to display unique logs, a config folder, which can provide the location of config files for automation, and a deploy folder for instances that will support software deployments. Note that logs in the specified log folder must end in .log in order to be displayed by the Morpheus agent. Multiple service ports can be added to open ports on the provisioned node, as we've done here. You can also add automation script templates to be executed when the node type is provisioned, as well as file templates which will be written to the node when provisioned. Lastly, layout-specific settings allow you to set how many copies of the node will be provisioned. The Apache instance type that we looked at earlier leveraged node types with virtual images to build the underlying operating system. Here we want to point out that Morpheus spec templates can also be used to build out the desired operating system or the entire Apache stack. When configuring the instance type layout, just select the appropriate infrastructure as code technology type, like ARM, CloudFormation, or Terraform, and then select the desired pre-configured spec template. Morpheus instances also include the ability to build and provision X as a service instance types. X as a service instance types are non-VM backed layouts which allow users to represent anything as an instance. X as a service instance types rely on provisioning workflows containing automation tasks that can then manage all lifecycle phases of the instance. Morpheus Docs provides an example of building an X as a service instance type for Dropbox so that Morpheus functionality can be used to interact with the Dropbox API in order to create, modify, and delete Dropbox folders. In this section, we'll show you other library features which are available for provisioning purposes. So far in this course module, we've talked about a number of items in the Morpheus library, including virtual images, instance types, layouts, and nodes. We'll now take a quick tour of some of the other library features. In the Automation tab, we'll look at the automation building blocks of tasks and workflows, scale thresholds, power scheduling, and execute scheduling. In the Blueprints tab, we'll look at app blueprints, catalog items, and cluster layouts. In the Options menu, we'll look at forms, inputs, and their related option lists. And finally, in the Templates menu, we'll talk about the purpose of spec templates, file templates, script templates, and security packages. Tasks are one of the fundamental building blocks of automation in Morpheus. Tasks are meant to accomplish something, install some software, add a user, and also far more complicated things. Tasks are commonly added to automation workflows, but they can also be scheduled through Morpheus execution schedules and jobs, or executed on demand against existing instances, the Morpheus appliance, or other remote systems. As you can see here, there are multiple task types supported, including Ansible and other configuration management tools, as well as a number of scripting languages. Users can paste code directly into a task or pull code in from an integrated repository or URL. Tasks can also output results, which can be formatted as single value, key value pair, or JSON. Provisioning workflows consist of one or more tasks which become tied into an instance type layout. The workflow contains numerous lifecycle phases into which the desired tasks are placed. Each phase could contain multiple tasks, and these tasks stay with the instance and run as appropriate when the instance changes lifecycle phases. Operational workflows are run against existing instances, whether on demand or scheduled through Morpheus execution schedules and jobs. Operational workflows also support inputs to gather user input when run, and also have a Allow Custom Config feature, which provides a text area used to pass variables into a task script at runtime. Scale thresholds are pre-configured settings for the auto-scaling of instances. They can be configured to auto-upscale or auto-downscale based on node count and utilization thresholds for memory, disk, and CPU. Once configured, they can be associated with an instance from the automation page of the provisioning wizard. Power scheduling allows for the configuration of daily shutdown and startup times for instances and VMs. Once configured, they can be associated with an instance from the automation page of the provisioning wizard, and they can also be associated with power schedule policies, which can be configured at administration policies. Execute scheduling provides for the configuration of time schedules that can be used to schedule jobs, which can run tasks, workflows, security scans, and backup jobs. For backup jobs specifically, once an execute schedule has been created, it can be associated with backup jobs in Backups jobs. What is an app blueprint? Well, a Morpheus app blueprint is a pre-configured multi-tier or multi-service application stack that can be provisioned as an app. A single blueprint can contain environment configurations to provision a given app into multiple cloud types. Blueprints are made up of multiple instances packaged together, and they can be configured to allow or disallow specific settings at deployment time, making it possible for users to do one or maybe a few click self-service provisioning with governance by group, cloud, or tenant. Shown here is the Morpheus Blueprint Builder, but understand that blueprints can also be configured leveraging infrastructure as code from third-party templates including ARM, CloudFormation, Helm, Kubernetes, and Terraform. Catalog items distill complex tasks into a simple shopping cart experience. Once configured, catalog items are exposed to users through the simple Morpheus Service Catalog persona rather than through the full UI. Catalog items can be created for instance and app blueprint provisioning, as well as for operational workflows. They also support the addition of inputs for gathering user input at runtime, which is a very common use case for the service catalog. Like instance types and blueprints, access to catalog items are managed through Morpheus governance, such as visibility settings and user roles. Morpheus cluster layouts are pre-configured complex layouts for provisioning Docker and Kubernetes hosts and clusters. There are over 180 layouts created by default, which can be provisioned across most cloud types. Each layout may include workflows, inputs, master nodes, worker nodes, and spec templates, making them very powerful and flexible tools for rolling out and managing these environments in Morpheus. Existing layouts can be cloned and edited, and net new layouts can also be created. Forms represent the next generation of the Morpheus input feature. Forms provide a means to both create inputs as well as group existing inputs into a saved configuration that can be easily added to and exposed in catalog items. They can include collapsible field groups for input organization. They make it easy to leverage Morpheus API objects for option lists, and they provide a number of data manipulation capabilities. As we've mentioned a number of times, inputs are custom input fields that can be added to instance types, layouts, operational workflows, catalog items, and cluster layouts. They provide a level of customization and flexibility, passing user input for provisioning, scripts, and automation. Shown here is an example input that would require a user to select their cost center prior to ordering an Apache instance type. There are multiple input types available, including text, select list, checkbox, number, and several others. The select list or option list is a separate object which gets defined and added to an input. The list itself can be populated by Morpheus API objects, a REST API, LDAP, or manually, as in this example. Spec templates allow Morpheus users to leverage a number of infrastructure as code solutions with existing or new code to create instances or accomplish other tasks. Spec templates can be single-purpose, highly modularized, and reusable pieces of code, for example, to add a security group or create a VM. Or they can be complex builds of multi-tier applications. Spec templates are most commonly used by making them a layout added to an existing or new instance type. In either case, this results in a layout consisting of declarative infrastructure as code rather than that of a virtual image that's been defined in Morpheus. For example, this would allow for the creation of a new Ubuntu VM by way of ARM or CloudFormation code rather than by a virtual image. Morpheus provides over 100 spec templates by default, but users are free to create and use their own by pasting or writing code or by pointing to a repository or URL. Supported spec templates include Terraform, ARM, CloudFormation templates, Kubernetes spec, Helm charts, and OneView and UCS service profile templates. File templates are used to generate config and other files as part of a lifecycle phase. Morpheus provides over 80 by default, but there's nothing stopping you from creating your own. File templates are commonly configured as part of an instance's node type, but they can also be added to a library template task. This example populates an Nginx config file, which names the site name using a Morpheus variable, pulling in the server name from an instance. Also, note that this file template has been configured to run during the provision phase, but other phases are available. If the instance type has Enable Settings checked in Advanced Options, a Settings tab will be added to the instance once provisioned. From this tab, users could modify the file templates and reapply them without needing to log in to the server. Script templates allow you to create scripts for automation of both Linux and Windows servers using Bash or PowerShell. Like file templates, script templates are also attached to a node type, or they can be added to a library script task. When created, script templates are configured to run during a specific lifecycle phase, whether that is at provisioning time, to start or stop a service using instance actions, when reconfiguring, and for other lifecycle phases. In this section, we'll show you how to create catalog items for the service catalog persona. Catalog items distill complex tasks into a simple shopping cart experience. Once configured, catalog items are exposed to users through the simple Morpheus Service Catalog persona, rather than through the full UI. Catalog items can be created for instance and app blueprint provisioning, as well as for operational workflows. They also support the addition of forms and inputs for gathering user input at runtime, which is a very common use case for the service catalog. Like instance types and blueprints, access to catalog items are managed through Morpheus governance, such as visibility settings and user roles. Catalog items are created at Library Blueprints Catalog Items by clicking Add and then selecting the type of catalog item, instance, blueprint, or workflow. For the instance and blueprint types, the process is very similar, and it assumes that you're familiar with the process of provisioning an instance or an app blueprint. You provide basic metadata for the catalog item, and then you click a Configure button to complete the configuration. For an instance, the Configure button leads you through the instance provisioning wizard, and when complete, it populates the catalog item form with the JSON code for all of the selections made while stepping through the provisioning wizard. You then can add Morpheus forms or inputs in order to get user input when the item is ordered. For a blueprint, the Configure button leads you through the app provisioning wizard, and when complete, it populates the catalog item form with the YAML code for all of the selections made while validating the configuration in the app provisioning wizard. You can also add Morpheus forms or inputs here. For a workflow, you simply provide metadata for the catalog item and select the desired pre-existing operation workflow. And like the other catalog item types, you can also add Morpheus forms or inputs. Here are the tops of the forms used to add instance, blueprint, or workflow catalog items. Note that they're nearly identical. The instance and blueprint forms have the Configure button as previously discussed, and the workflow form has the workflow field where the desired workflow is selected. They all share standard metadata fields for name, code, description, category, labels, visibility, and logos. And here is the bottom half of those forms. The content field can be used to add additional instructions or text into the catalog order page, leveraging Markdown formatted text. The form type field allows for a form or inputs to be added to the catalog item for user input. When a form or input is added to a catalog item, such as the production form in this case, a form variables section will be added at upper right, and the included inputs will be displayed as part of the catalog item order when presented to the user. Note that there's much more to understand about the configuration of inputs and forms. For this, refer to the Morpheus docs or the appropriate online training. Here we'll have a look at the permissions associated with the self-service catalog. The catalog items feature permission in the library feature group is required in order to create and modify catalog items. The enabling of this feature, whether for the read or full access level, determines whether the catalog tab is visible in library blueprints. In order to be able to provision catalog items, a role must have the desired feature permissions enabled in the Catalog Feature Permissions group. In addition to permissions for the self-service catalog, there are also permissions and considerations for each catalog item. On the Catalog Item Types tab of the role permissions, the level of access needs to be configured for desired catalog items, whether by use of the default access setting or more granular control for each catalog item. For catalog items created in the master tenant, their visibility must be set to public in order to expose the catalog item to a subtenant. This still requires the appropriate catalog item permissions as just discussed. In this section, we'll show you how to order catalog items. Catalog items can be ordered from the standard UI persona at provisioning catalog, provided that the user's role has the appropriate catalog-related permissions. As discussed earlier, these include the catalog permission in the catalog permissions group and access set for the specific catalog items on the catalog item types permissions tab. Catalog items can also be ordered from the service catalog, provided that the user's role has the appropriate catalog-related permissions. As discussed earlier, these include the catalog full permission in the catalog permissions group and access set for the specific catalog items on the catalog item types permissions tab. Additionally, the user's role must have the service catalog access set on the personas permissions tab. Note that the user's role can also be configured to default to the service catalog if the role also includes standard persona access. Here is a view of the service catalog for a user's role with full catalog permissions. It will include the dashboard, containing the widest view of features, the catalog, for a list of available catalog items, instances and apps, for a listing of previously provisioned instances and apps, executions, which list previously executed workflows, and an order history for previous orders. Note that the catalog permission provides for the catalog, instances, apps, and executions tabs. The dashboard and order history tabs have their own permissions. The service catalog was designed to be a simple way to leverage Morpheus, and in the next few slides you'll see that that's true. To order a catalog item, click Order. On the order form, fill out any inputs that are presented, particularly any required inputs denoted by a vertical bar in the field. Then, click either Add to Order or Order Now. Clicking Add to Order places the order in the shopping cart, whereas clicking Order Now immediately starts the provisioning process. Clicking Add to Order results in the order being placed in the shopping cart at the top of the UI. Clicking on the shopping cart results in the Review Order form, where you can either edit the order, delete the order, or place the order. The order status will immediately show pending. Order status will change to complete within seconds. Click the hyperlinked instance name to get additional details. Clicking the link for the instance provides the instance details page. This looks nearly identical to an instance details page in the standard UI or persona, and it includes the same edit, actions, and delete features as well as the detail tabs below. What's different is that the display below does not include the hyperlinks for group, cloud, and other Morpheus objects, as these objects are only accessible in the standard UI. Clicking the Instances tab provides a view of all instances visible to the user. This page has similar features and functionality to the instances display in the standard UI or persona. The Dashboard tab displays the catalog, what has been recently ordered, and an order history. The process for ordering blueprints or workflows from the service catalog is very similar to what we walked through for an instance. Ordering a workflow catalog item simply runs an operational workflow. You can view its progress on the Executions tab, and if running the workflow against an instance, you can view progress on the Instances History tab. For blueprint catalog items, you can view progress on the Apps tab. In this module, we covered instance types, virtual images, creating custom instance types, other library types, and creating and ordering catalog items. Thank you for completing this course module.